So are Indian protein brands safe?
5 years back, there was not a single Indian brand that could afford getting testing done. These testings, which allows the athlete or gives the athlete or the product a green tick to consume, are extremely expensive.
How is their nutrition different from what a regular person will
You
eat?
have to consider the fact they are different. So yes, they definitely eat very differently.
Are they allowed to have supplements over the counter, or does everything have to be cross-checked with you?
They cannot have any protein powder. They definitely have to check either with me or the team medical head.
A person who's just going to the gym, what are the supplements they need?
Does every gym goer needs? No. If you are a non-vegetarian, if you're able to meet your demands through food, you don't need a supplement. Number 2,
If the diet is largely protein deficient, a vegetarian should be consuming at least 2 scoops of protein powder per day.
if you have a vegetarian who is lactose intolerant and who gets bloated on lentils and has thyroid and hence cannot take soy, what is that vegetarian left?
What do you think is the state of healthcare in India?
I'll tell you, the biggest challenge today that we have in healthcare is nutrition is not taken seriously. If today you see a situation, for example, an orthopedic doctor after a surgery will always tell the patient, you need to go and see a physio for rehab. How often do you hear a kidney patient? How often do you hear a diabetic? How often do you hear a gynec after she's delivered a child to tell the patient that you need to go and see a nutritionist?
Hi, I'm Neha, and this is the Lifesavers Show. Today, I'm in conversation with Kinita Patel. She's the official sports nutritionist for the Mumbai Indians IPL team. It's an absolutely fabulous conversation that I've had with her. She's spoken so much on athletic performance, on what it takes to become an athlete, on supplements, on a lot of other health issues, and in fact, a lot of health problems that we as a nation seem to be facing. Let's listen in. Hi, Kinita. Thank you so much for joining me on the Lifesavers Show. Kinita is the official sports nutritionist for the Mumbai Indians IPL team, and I am extremely flattered actually to have her here talking nutrition with me. She's also written a book called The Athlete in You. Kinita, I want you to tell me, why have you written this book and what was the motivation for writing this book?
First of all, thank you, Neha. Absolute pleasure to be here with you on this talk, and very excited to do this for the next few hour or so. But to begin with, the athlete in you. So I'll run you through a little journey of what happened with that book. The phase in which I was actually writing that book, there was a huge demand for what I like to categorize as diet books.
Okay.
And those diet books and those diets were making a lot of round, and people were picking them up off the shelf, trying these diets on their own, which were those typical 5 diets off the shelf that anybody could follow. But I was always of the opinion, A, that one size does not fit all, and B, the demand of fitness or exercise that should have gone along with these diet books was something I feel was not properly communicated.
Okay.
And I strongly feel that as much as nutrition is important, it
Yeah.
does not. It is not a single diet that fits everyone. It has to get individualized. And second, you cannot remove performance or exercise or training out of that equation.
Mhm.
And that was the reason why I wrote The Athlete in You. I wrote it keeping in mind people who want to follow a certain kind of a nutritious pattern, because as a sports nutrition, I believe sports nutrition is not only for an athlete, it's for anybody who wants to enhance his
Yeah.
performance in life.
Mhm.
So that book was written keeping in mind people who don't want to just diet but
Mhm.
want to enhance performance.
Okay.
And if you want to, and you want to pick up these few sports which are generic sports which are easy on your body, how you should eat nutritionally along with it and not actually diet to lose weight.
Okay, so
So,
if Kirita, let's say I want to make my body into a high performance machine, then I am going to come to Bombay and I'm going to see you so that you can
oh, this is my
yeah,
pleasure.
how to क्या बोलते हैं उसको how do you sort of start driving a Ferrari and you look after it and all of that, right? I mean that's one of the quotes that you've used in your
That's absolutely right.
now, Kinita, about let's talk about athletes. Let's talk about their athletic performance. Do you tour with the boys, and do you like? Are you very nitpicky about what they eat, or is like a generic thing like given to them? How is their nutrition different from let's say what a regular person will eat?
So, of course, you have to consider the fact they are different
Mm-hmm.
than regular people. Even people who would play cricket on a regular basis might be playing more recreationally.
Okay.
Athletes live to only do that. So, yes, they definitely eat very
Okay.
differently. Their demand is very, very different. The way one works with a team is I have been with them for over a decade now. Yes, I am very picky about what they eat. Yes, I am overlooking like a hawk on what they eat when the season is on, and
Are you
even
like a
during
helicopter nutritionist with them? Like, are you sort of trying to see everything that they're eating, including mithai and desserts and all of that?
see, we have to even accept the fact food is very comforting. These athletes are away from home, sometimes been away from home for months,
Yeah.
and sometimes you are trying to find that comfort food. But at the end of the day, the concept is, are they educated about the fact that they need to follow a certain kind of a nutrition program to improve their performance? That is the bottom line. The
Mm-hmm.
fact that they accept it today,
Mm-hmm.
after me being in this field for over 2 decades, is
Mm-hmm.
a big win as a sports nutritionist. The fact that they know that, yes, they need to fuel to perform. There is always importance to strength and conditioning, fitness training, workouts, exercise, physiotherapy, sports medicine. But sports nutrition as a concept was not at the peak of any discussion. But today it's reached a point that it is so integrated that it is a
Yeah,
part
because
of the
you can't really live
entire.
without it, right? You can't
Yeah,
um, become like a high performance machine, like I mentioned earlier, without eating the right high performance foods.
correct,
So,
correct.
what exactly goes on to making their what is it? Is it like a meal plan or like a menu or something that you make
It's
or?
everything. So when it comes to them is for the team, we do a lot of things. Number one, when they are training. So this is not just on the match day. Okay. So even when they're training, the meals that are provided when they train, what
Yeah.
they are eating at the field, that is obviously we would put like 15, 20 things, items that are put over there. It's not like shadi ka khana. Matlab wo barat nahi lagi wahan pe, you're not doing paneer makhani with extra butter on top. But
Yeah.
yes, there are nutrition guidelines, sports nutrition guideline based menus that are curated. Out of that, then every particular athlete is then sat with, had a consultation with, spoken with the entire ecosystem, which involves your trainer, your SNC, your physiotherapist, whoever, along with the athlete to understand what body composition or goals do we have set for this athlete. And
Okay.
then that athlete is then given a nutrition plan. So he will go and pick and choose from those 20 items what he's supposed to eat. So
Mhm.
yes, there is a huge laid out thing. Also with IPL, especially what happens is because we also have a lot of international players on the team, we can't just do a run of the mill five Indian
Mhm.
items. We kind of curate a cuisine or a menu which covers every palate.
Mhm.
Over and above that, every athlete's requirement. Over and above that, need to make sure that if I am recommending something to an athlete to eat, to make sure it is getting served during the training phase.
Okay.
Additionally,
Okay.
on the competition day, again, the menus are curated especially for the event day. Additionally,
Mhm.
all the meals that they are eating, that they are planned, we work with the hotels in which they stay. And
Wow.
then we will, if a
Okay.
specific athlete has a specific requirement, whether intolerances, allergies, needs much higher calories, much lower calories, all these things are taken
So
care
I'm
of. So
sure a lot of them, do they have like health sort of any intolerances like gluten or dairy or anything like that that you take out time to make their nutrition separately?
yes,
Oh,
totally, totally. Every player is given an individual customized diet plan.
mhm.
Over and above that, also a generic menu is been provided to them from which they can pick and choose. every caterer, every person in the hotel, every chef has been informed if an athlete has a lactose intolerance, a nut allergy, a peanut allergy, any other gluten intolerances. Everything has been communicated to all these different people or ecosystem that is involved in working with one athlete in the
O-
team.
Okay.
And the team is taken care of as well.
Kirita, do they like are they allowed to have supplements over the counter, or do they every or does everything have to be cross checked with you? I'm
So
just
Neha,
in my mind. The only thing that comes probably is protein powders because
yeah.
I mean that is something that a lot of people have now. Can they consume any sort of protein powder, or does that have to be cross checked with you as well?
No, so they cannot have any protein powder. We do shortlist the brands that are tested, certified, checked for anti-doping, world anti-doping agencies.
Mhm.
We only recommend those brands. If for any reason they need to take something else that is local or are not able to get or procure, or for whatever reason they don't have that brand, they definitely have to check either with me or the team manager or the team medical head
Mhm.
before they can take it, because doping is we take it very seriously. There is no room for discussion on taking any product off the shelf. You don't just walk around and buy a supplement off the shelf. No.
So are Indian protein brands safe? Should I buy into the fact that there has been research done and there's a lot of there's these banned substances that have been found. A lot of brands are protein deficient as well, like they're showing exaggerated amounts, but in the scoop there is less. Are you of the
Correct.
opinion that yes, there is somewhere there is stuff going off?
Yes, that does happen in some brands, and that is why we only give certified brands. And
Okay.
if you ask me if there are Indian brands that are good enough, you'll be surprised to know there are a lot of Indian brands which, up until I would say 5 years back, there was not a single Indian brand that could afford getting testing done.
Okay.
Because these testings, which allows the athlete or gives the athlete or the product a green tick to consume, are extremely expensive. So
Okay.
there were no protein brands in India up until I would say 5 years back. And now we have a plethora of brands that are certified, tried, and tested that you get over here, which can easily be prescribed or off the shelf given to the athlete.
And they're safe.
Absolutely, because they're tested.
I was reading a report on these brands, and I think a few Indian brands like Muscle Blaze and all came on top. Whatever is on the label is what is inside, in the scoop.
You
So
get those brands here also now.
yeah, yeah,
Yes.
okay,
Certified, tried, tested. They must have done those few brands that they did in that report. I know which one you're talking about, but
yeah,
we do get over here tested, certified brands. You know what happens earlier? What used to happen was it is all about testing a batch. You have to understand when you buy a supplement, a particular body is testing that batch. So, in that batch, say for example, a batch that was tested on 27th September 2024, you kind of removed 100 products, and those 100 products are batch tested. Many
okay,
times a brand does not go and repeat that batch testing. They only take that logo and then they put it on their website. But
mm,
now we know which batches are tested. So then we will go and we will only buy those batches. So we will go and we will say this particular batch is tested, give us 100 products of this batch for our athletes. So
yeah,
this is how we try and make sure that the athlete is getting the batch tested product.
okay. So earlier when I used to buy supplements, when I used to sort of take protein, I don't take protein anymore. But when I used to take protein earlier, there used to be a certain label which said which was that informed sport testing,
Yes,
which
that's the
like
one I'm talking. That's
that's the
the
one you're
one
talking about. Okay,
that's
so
the one I'm
and
talking about.
every time I have seen that, and I have realized that this particular supplement, if it is safe for athletes, then I can also consume it. Is that the correct way to look at it? I mean, to look at anybody.
Absolutely. No, no, 100%. If you are trying to find any supplement that has an informed sport or has an NSF certification, NSF is also a very big body. We also take that certification very seriously. Then these are two very good certifications to have.
Okay,
Of course,
okay,
there are also labs. Which are called WADA labs, World
yeah,
Anti-Doping Agency labs. They also take third-party products and they'll test it for you and they'll tell you if this
okay,
product is okay or not. Very few products can actually get that kind of a logo on it, that it's a WADA tested product. So,
true.
but typically, Informed Sport, NSF certified are two certifications that you must look out for if you are someone who's conscious about the supplements you're using.
should a gym goer be using supplements? Let's say a non-athlete, a person who's just going to the gym. What are the supplements that they need? I'm just talking about a broad perspective. I'm not putting men and women in the same category, because women after a certain age do end up needing supplements, protein and pre-workout and all of these supplements. I mean, what is your take on this?
See, Neha, it's a very, very good question, to be very honest, because everybody asks this. I'm not an athlete. I just go to the gym 3 times a week. And that's why I take protein shake only when I work out, on the days that I work out, post workout. Now,
Yeah.
I'll tell you the problem over here. Number one, does every gym goer needs? No. If you are a non-vegetarian, if you are able to meet your demands through food, you don't need a supplement.
Okay.
Number two, do you need a supplement only on the days that you train? No. You need to take a supplement if you're actively training on all days.
Okay.
Number three, are the demands for men and women different, slightly different? You'll be surprised to hear demand for women are actually much higher. And if I had to tell you lastly, where we talk only of protein as a nutrient,
Yeah.
there is a requirement that we have. Our Indian Council of Medical Research, ICMR, will say 0.8 to 1 gram per kg body weight is the demand of protein. But up until a couple of years back, when research was done, Indian population does not even meet 0.6 grams of protein per kg body weight.
Yeah.
So
I actually
let
get that, because we are Indians by and large are deficient in protein. Also, there's not much education about the sources
exactly.
of protein. You know, when you think about protein, it's all about eggs, meat, fish, and chicken. So they're like, ये सब non-veg sources है. Largely, they're also vegetarian. Our breakfast does not have protein. Our lunch does not have protein. When we do get protein is when we probably eat out.
Yeah, so that's why the requirement of protein actually becomes very important. Honestly, it's very rare a non-vegetarian would require a protein supplement if he's able to eat non-vegetarian food in all meals in the day. But I'll tell you, the non-vegetarians of our country
Yeah.
don't eat non-veg on Tuesday and Saturday, and then they will not eat on 7 days in the month, and then there are these random combinations. It doesn't come in the house. I eat it out. So net, you are not consuming your protein.
Yeah.
Over and above that, if you're going to have a wear and tear on your body, you will 100% need something to get enough protein in your body. Now, I'll
Yeah.
tell you a classic situation of an Indian diet. What happens is they wake up very conscious, gone for 1 hour of workout, 3 days a week, taken a protein shake, then went into breakfast, ate poha for breakfast, went into lunch, had dal chawal for lunch, went into snack, had makhana, and went into dinner where they just had one roti and sabzi. Please tell me, where is the
All
20?
carbohydrates. That's
Exactly.
literally all carbs. I mean, what you
You are,
just mentioned is everything is carbs.
you are just getting your protein post meal.
Yeah.
Post workout in that one scoop. So if
Once.
you are someone who's having a diet like this, on the days that you don't work out, if you don't take your protein shake, you have not had enough protein at all. So, yes, your protein demand will be there, and do not underestimate the power of this nutrient. This nutrient is something that everybody should be looking out for. Like, I'm not talking about, or I'm not trying to digress from the fact that millets are good and brown rice is good. Of course, that is your healthier choice in a
Yeah.
carbohydrate, but you are not giving importance to the discussion of protein in
True.
that meal.
Yeah.
You're trying to eat healthy by shifting from white rice to brown rice, but where is the protein? You need to change the patla dal
Yeah.
to, 100 grams, 150 grams of paneer, or you need to get into some kind of
Dal
sprouts.
is also more or less carbs. There's very minimal protein
Absolutely.
in dal.
Yes, very
The
minimal.
fallacy that the dal is high protein. Dal is actually not high protein. There's very minimal carbohydrate. There's very minimal protein in dal.
If I had to put it correctly, it is comparatively higher protein in a vegetarian food source. So it is not high protein. It is
Okay.
an incomplete source of protein. It does not have all amino acid. It is the way we cook it reduces the total quantum of protein we consume at one time. So it's definitely cannot be your source of protein in that meal.
Okay.
So, yeah, we have to work on a diet with every person who is a vegetarian turning into a vegan.
Yeah.
Help them understand how important getting 12 to 18 grams of protein per meal becomes an important quality factor to improve metabolism, muscle gain, everything.
So a vegetarian then should be, if the diet is largely protein deficient, let's say a vegetarian should be consuming at least 2 scoops of protein powder per day, or is it just 1 scoop?
No, so that would be an incorrect analysis to make, to be very honest. If you have a vegetarian who is lactose intolerant and who gets bloated on lentils and
Uh-huh.
has thyroid and hence cannot take soy, what is that vegetarian left with?
Yeah.
Nothing to
Also,
eat.
if that vegetarian has diabetes, I mean, what do they do about their protein intake then?
Exactly. So that
Yeah.
is why you could have a vegetarian who might need a supplemental support of 12 to 15 grams of protein in every single meal.
Yeah.
So
True.
taking it down to just 2 scoops a day would be an, you know, a wrong analogy to give you at all. But the bottom line is you have to first sit, analyze what protein you are consuming. And
Yeah.
I'm talking people with no clinical factors. If there is a clinical element that gets added to it, whether it's a kidney disorder or a uric acid factor, then this whole conversation is different. But as a population,
Mm-hmm.
it is a public health crisis, according to me, because the population of India does not consume enough protein. They're concentrating on the type of greens, but they're not concentrating on the type of protein.
Okay. Kinita, there's another supplement which actually I am very fond of, and there's been enough research done, and I do currently take it. That is creatine, because I've
Yeah.
seen the most amazing benefits when it comes to muscle recovery, when it comes to just my overall recovery. I don't need that afternoon nap, and I can do without it. Also, I have more energy throughout the day. I think that you become a little smarter also with creatine. I want you to give me the lowdown exactly on this supplement and why is it so good.
So, creatine, if I had to just break it down, it's one of those known devils. We have done so much research on creatine in the
Mm-hmm.
nutrition world, so much research that we know everything good it can do and everything bad that it can do. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
from the good, when you look at it, it is one of the most amazing supplement. I rank it as the top ergogenic supplement ever. I don't know if you know this. For a period of time, creatine was banned by the World Anti-Doping Agency, but they did realize after a few years that it's actually nothing wrong in taking a creatine supplement, and they lifted the ban off.
Okay.
So taking a creatine supplement can, like you rightly said, it can enhance performance. It
Yeah.
is fantastic for recovery. It is very, very good for women because women don't have enough muscle and hence their creatine ability to produce is much lesser. And it's not just you who feels good about, you feel more focused, but creatine actually is one of those particular amino acid components that can cross your blood brain barrier. And what does creatine do? Creatine converts to energy as quickly as it comes in your bloodstream. So
Okay.
imagine it converting to ATP in your blood. It's so
Okay.
much more focus, so much
Okay.
more attention. You feel so much more faster in your brain. And that is why you feel this absolute elevation when you're taking creatine as a supplement.
I think it's for women more so than men. It is just a phenomenal supplement to have. Is the
Yeah.
team having it? Like, do the cricketers also are they allowed to have creatine?
Of course, creatine is not a banned substance. Creatine can be given to any athlete. Why just cricket? Any sport. It is
Okay.
not in the list of the World Anti-Doping Agency at all. IOC also does not ban creatine. So creatine
Okay.
monohydrate as a
Yeah.
supplement is as safe as it gets when you take it in the right dosage.
Okay.
There are a lot of underlying factors if someone has a clinical condition, but the whole fear that consuming creatine will damage your kidney, consuming protein will damage your kidney. No, it does not happen that way. A very, very
Yeah,
healthy
I mean,
kidney.
if you abuse, and I just feel that if you abuse anything and if you just keep overloading, like a lot of people, do that. Like instead of the given scoop, you're taking 2-3 scoops in a day.
Correct.
That is again crazy. So excess of anything is bad.
It's just a funny thing. You take 5
Yeah,
paracetamols a day, it can damage your liver eventually. So, I
yeah,
mean, what is creatine? At the end of the day, you're
you're right.
taking it in
You're right.
excess to cause that.
You're right. Kinita, what is weight? How do you define weight? How is it possible to concentrate on weight loss and keep the muscle in check? Like, how do you do that? Like, if I, let's say, want to lose weight, how do I concentrate on just knocking off the weight bit, but keeping my muscle mass intact?
Right. So, there are a lot of layers to this question, and I'm glad you asked this question because this is an education that people need to learn.
Mhm.
First of all, muscle is about quality.
Okay.
Okay, you could have a very big guy with
Uh,
very poor muscle health,
okay.
or you could have a very lean person
Yeah.
with
With
an excellent muscle quality. So it's all coming down to your composition. Okay, what is the quality of your muscle composition, right?
okay.
So you really don't need to be big to have good muscles.
True.
You
True.
just need to, you can be your same body type but have phenomenal muscular quality, right? Now, when you look at muscle as a concept,
Mhm.
muscle is heavier than fat. So whenever
Okay.
you are trying to lose weight and you lose a lot of weight very fast, you be rest assured you have landed up losing muscle because fat does not drop so fast.
Mhm.
Okay. So when you are getting into any journey of weight loss,
Yeah.
there are a lot of factors you need to keep in mind. First of all is, yes, I need to lose weight, but I need to lose fat over muscle. That means I need to lose weight slowly. That means if I want to keep my muscle intact but concentrate on more fat loss, I
Mhm.
need to be on certain kind of a training program
Mhm.
and a nutrition that supports that training program that can keep my muscle intact, because food alone, protein alone without exercise cannot keep your muscle intact. It cannot.
Okay. Okay.
Muscle can only be made or kept if you are working out, and
Okay.
if that workout is supported with the right kind of protein. So if you are trying to lose weight, you have to first tell yourself that exercise is non-negotiable. When I exercise, the complementary nutrition plan is also non-negotiable. You
Okay.
cannot exercise, but the interesting part is you can exercise and make muscle even if you're not eating enough protein, because your ability to build mass comes naturally to the body, comes hormonally to men. So you can still make, but that is poor muscle quality. It's not good muscle quality. So your
Yeah.
health of your muscle is not good. But when you combine it with the good nutrition, you're making great muscle. So when you're losing weight, I would request everyone, don't be in a rush. Lose more inches over weight. Yes,
Mhm.
lose weight, but be rest assured, if you're enjoying the process, if you're
Hmm.
keeping the larger picture in mind, you will lose weight with more fat and keep your muscle intact.
Yeah. Yeah. We seem to be in this sort of everybody is in this sort of a rush. शादी आ रही है तो 2 महीने पहले यार कुछ करना है, कुछ मतलब वेट लॉस करना है जरूर। अभी कार्डियो कर करके भाग के आई वांट टू लूज वेट। इट्स अ एक्सीलेंट आइडिया। लेट्स जस्ट डू कार्डियो एंड आई एम गोइंग टू लूज वेट। आई
Yeah.
हैव women coming and telling me they stopped weight training entirely because शादी आ रही है and शादी के लिए वो भाग भाग के वेट लॉस करेंगे। I have also another lady come up and tell me that she stopped training strength training because मेरे ना वो muscles बनने लगे थे तो इसलिए मैंने अभी strength training खत्म कर दी है। And I am only doing cardio and I'm doing the cross trainer and I'm doing the stepper and this is my entire workout routine.
Yeah.
When people come and tell me this stuff, I don't know how to react. I mean, there's a part of me that wants to laugh, but then
Yeah.
because they are not educated enough about how important it is specifically for women to keep that muscle mass intact. I mean,
Yeah.
it takes years to build any sort of muscle mass. It literally takes years to build that muscle mass, and then there are these fallacies that come to me. So what is your take on these quick fixes to lose weight?
I'm absolutely against this kind of a concept, and I try my best for every person who comes to to visit me, to meet me, to consult with me. I try my best to explain to them how important it is for women to weight train. I kid
Yeah,
you not. I live with a
yeah.
lot of injuries that have been on me for almost 25 years.
Okay.
But I have come to that conclusion. The only reason every time that recovery is better or every time I have bounced back quicker is only because of the muscle that I have made otherwise. And
Yeah.
I think that's what the women are losing, that point over there. The want to be thin
Mm.
is so costly.
Yeah.
It is just, and honestly, if any of these women are able to make that kind of bulk and muscle, give me those hormones. Like, honestly, like,
Yeah. I
women cannot-
just make it clear that we don't have those hormones to build muscle
exactly.
or look like pehlwans or bodybuilders, which is what everybody seems to think.
But Neha, it happens. I'll explain to you why that happens. Yes, I'm not going to dismiss the feeling. The feeling is real. Yes, you do feel suddenly bigger. You do feel sudden, like something's happening. But why is that happening? Let me explain to you. That happens for two reasons. Number one, the moment you start mobilizing and recruiting certain muscles in your body, that muscle has broken. That muscle is now recovering. So that muscle is swelling in the process of recovery. And
Okay.
when the muscle is swelling, it's like any kind of hurt or pain that you get. You get a superficial pain over here, it will first swell up. The blood is gone there, the nutrients have gone there to help you heal. And
Hmm.
that is why there is swelling on that muscle when the wear and tear happens.
Hmm.
So you suddenly feel, oh, big lag raha. But the other issue is when that muscle is forming and wear and tear is happening, your fat loss is not in the linear manner. Your muscle gain and fat loss are not going in the same breath. Please
Okay.
understand. So you can't gain muscle and lose fat at the same time.
Hmm.
And that is why there is going to be a superficial feeling of bigness, but
Hmm.
a short duration of feeling where you're feeling bigger.
Hmm.
But that only becomes more and more toned when the
Yeah.
swelling goes, when the muscle starts burning the fat, when you start burning the fat in that area, all that feeling then turns into tone. And
Yeah.
that is why that process takes so much longer.
Yeah.
So that feeling of women wanting, is not something I would dismiss, but they need to know why it is happening. That does not mean you stop and start running. Running is
आपको
going to
बोलते
be,
हैं लोग आके कि हमें यहाँ पे बस टोनिंग चाहिए। आई जस्ट वांट इधर
of
या इधर
course,
थाइस पे बस थोड़ी-सी टोनिंग चाहिए।
of course.
टोनिंग टोनिंग चाहिए। तो वो व्हाट इज़ योर रिस्पॉन्स टू ऑल ऑफ दिस?
If anybody tells you that you can tone one place, if anybody tells you you can lose fat, in fact, I had very recently done this post, and I don't know why it came to me, because someone came and told me, give me one tip to lose belly fat, and I said,
Yeah.
please leave. It doesn't work this way. You have to use your entire body to mobilize that fat from that one place. And trust me, your body has its own mind. It will decide where to deposit, where to mobilize.
Yeah.
Hormones play a very important role in this entire process,
Yes.
which I think people need to first learn muscle and fat before we start teaching them hormones,
हाँ.
because they are at such a integral level in your body that education is going to take time in women. But running on the treadmill to fit in the black dress is not the solution.
I think you have a young kid. I have
Yes.
a young daughter as well. She's on the verge of, is just touching her teens. I want to sort of, by my podcast, put this out about nutrition on PCOD and PCOS, which is such a common term. Nearly everybody has it. Whenever I speak to some mom whose child is entering the teens or, is on the verge of her menstrual cycle or is, on that verge of puberty, and they're talking about PCOD and PCOS, and this is what has happened and that is what has happened. So what is PCOD? What is PCOS? What is the nutrition that we need to? I think I take a very active role in my kitchen, and I take a very active role in my daughter's, what I feed her and all of that. And it starts at a very early stage. It doesn't really start just the moment a child is diagnosed with PCOD or PCOS. It
Correct.
starts with what you're feeding them regularly. I mean, do they have access to, fried foods and sweets and all sorts of junk? I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe you should tell me more on this.
So I'll tell you, PCOD, PCOS is something where there are multiple small cysts that are formed in the ovary.
Okay.
While you rightly said everybody seems to be having it,
Yeah.
there are many reasons why one could be having it. One could be
Okay.
just environmental. One could honestly be hereditary as well.
Okay.
But it is in today's generation, it's happening more due to their eating habits and the sheer exposure to various cuisines and food groups. Now, while we were growing up, there were 8, 10 things we would eat once a month, eating that kind of, fancy cuisines or Chinese, and, going to eat some Thai was considered to be luxury. Today, that is something getting ordered on Swiggy, not by kids, but by parents.
Yeah.
Right? So it is the exposure of the parents to the cuisine which is getting introduced in the child. It's
Okay.
honestly not that one packet of chip in the week that is causing it. It's the overall approach of children towards food,
Mhm.
the overall genetically modified food that is available in the market. It's the sheer adulteration of ingredients that is happening today. So
Yeah.
uh, PCOD is a very, very big nuisance, is what I feel in today's teens. And I think today's teens somewhere even hide behind the nuisance, saying that, I have PCOD, so I'm not able to lose weight. They find it very difficult to face it bang on. पर कैसे करेंगे, right? Family की eating habits इतनी
Yeah.
बुरी
Yeah.
है, so what is the child going to do? So
Yeah.
my first suggestion is, you need to, when you have a teen who's, facing these issue, it's actually not the child, it's the parents that need a lot of counseling.
Mhm.
They really need to be educated about nutrition, and they need to be explained which foods that they are bringing every day in the house that is affecting their child.
Yeah.
In the long run, what does PCOD or PCOS do? Its bottom line, it's going to become the problem of every issue in a world in the next 10 years if we don't face this head on. Reason is going to cause depression because it's going to massively affect your self esteem, because it is going to start interfering with your weight. It interferes with your entire skin barrier. You get acne, you get hair loss, you get insulin
Yeah.
resistance, you get fat deposition at the visceral, on the hips, on your arms, on your back. You will see black lines everywhere. You'll have high cortisol, you'll have very big breasts, and you are going to be struggling to
Mm.
lose weight. You're
True.
going to struggle to position yourself in a certain kind of a expected environment, that we say the world, there is a certain way in which you can position yourself in the world. And the day that happens, the day the self-esteem drops in today's world, that mental health, you're going to find yourself very, very depressed. So I really request anybody who's suffering with PCOD, there are a lot of different types of PCOD. If you even have a very small PCOD, like
Mhm.
for example, at a very stage 1 level where your gynec says it's okay, it's just the beginning, just take care of your food, don't take it lightly. You can reverse it at that point. Whether you are 11 or 12 or 15, we can still correct it. We can still address it. So take nutritional health. Don't try to make changes just on your own. So there are a lot of hormones that can go wrong in this. You must take nutritional advice. You must take physical training advice. Yes, a gynec might probably consider PCOD to be worst when you start skipping periods, when
Mhm.
the periods start delaying, when they don't start coming regularly, when your acne has reached the next level. But if you would have addressed it a little sooner, food could have done wonders. Exercise could have done wonders.
In fact, I completely agree. And I relate to it at a level because I had PCOD when I was growing up. And my periods were very irregular. I had very bad acne. I
Correct?
was putting on weight, and I had very low self-esteem. So I'm putting it
Exactly.
out via this podcast that I had all of these issues. But then I started exercising and eating right. I got myself tested for PCOD, not in my teens, actually, I think in my 20s, because we did not have
Same,
awareness at
same
the time.
experience.
No, when I did get myself tested, and I realized that it is all a part of what you eat and how your insulin is reacting to all of this.
Yes.
And it's basically a whole lifestyle change. So my parents were not educated about nutrition, and they did not know. So that's why I didn't know. And then I had to educate myself about what to eat, how to eat, and how to exercise right and all that. And
Yeah.
now I want to actually just be there with all of this information for my daughter, because I
Yeah.
think she needs it, more than anything else. So
Yeah.
it is very imperative for me on a everyday basis to tell her. And she's very smart now. She reads food labels. She knows what to eat. And in fact, when she goes to her friends' houses, she tells me that they eat a lot of junk. And, there's this fried stuff over there, there's packaged food and all of that. And you tell me all of this is junk. So I said, I can only limit and control you. I can't, I can't control
But
everybody.
Neha, this what point you brought up is fantastic. And I'd like to elaborate on this a bit because what happens is there is a limit to how much no you can tell your child. Okay. From the time I realized that my daughter was understanding what I was doing, what I do for a living and what I talk and what I say, I never stopped her. And I'm putting this out on your podcast. I had never stopped my child from eating anything. I have only done one thing. I have educated her. I have told her what you are eating is a potato. It is fry. It comes in a package and it has certain ingredients which are not great for your body. However, your choice. I have never taken away the packet and you can't eat chips.
Yes.
I have never done this. I still remember my mother calling me up once and telling me, there's pav bhaji made at home. You told her not to eat pav. Said, Mama, I have not told her to not eat pav. Please listen to me. I
Yeah.
told her the difference between pav,
Yeah.
maida,
Huh.
brown bread, sourdough, white bread, because she was curious to ask me that, Mama, why do we only bring sourdough and why do
Yes.
you make me
Yes.
sourdough with everything?
Yeah.
So she has made a conscious decision to tell you she doesn't want to eat pav. So the day your child is reading labels, you have done the right thing. You have educated your child right. Then a random chip and here and there is a different story. But
Yeah.
if you just stop them, they rebel.
Yes.
When you
Yeah.
educate them, that's the right way to.
I tell you what, so I had a meeting with my daughter's school principal, and I told her the different changes that they can make in their school canteen because I was not very happy with snack boxes being labeled as healthy. And when you opened the snack box, it had a samosa, it had a fruity, it had a packet of
Wow.
Oreo biscuits, and it had I think it had some other some toffee or a chocolate or something like that. And I said that and she said we serve them in our canteen as well, but then there is health food. So I said, what? I don't have a problem with you serving this food or maybe retailing it. It's okay, but you have to have a label saying junk food so that the
Correct.
kids that this is junk food. This is not
Totally.
healthy food. I mean, they can
Totally.
eat it, but in their psyche, they should know that what they're consuming is junk. This is not healthy.
Yes.
So I tell her this every single day, and she sometimes gets flustered with me, like everything is about health and everything is about, what are you consuming? I said, because that is the foundation to you becoming an athlete. That is the foundation to you, getting your source of energy. That's about it. You have to
Totally.
treat your body like, I keep telling her this, by the way, after I read your book, I keep telling her, I said, you treat your body like a Ferrari, yaar. I mean, I don't care. Just treat it like a Ferrari. I mean, just give it the best possible stuff. Don't give it any sort of which is going to lead to any inflammation or anything. So I'm going on the Ferrari, and I've taken that line from your book.
I like it. I like it. It's a nice analogy to do.
I want you to touch upon perimenopause and menopause as well. How is it different? How do we come to know that we are deficient in some way, or like what is the nutrition that we need to keep in mind? I know protein is there throughout. Protein is probably on top of every nutrition requirement, but when it comes to perimenopause and menopause, how do women need to do it differently?
So, Neha, this is something that the awareness is now building. For a very long time, we were not even aware we are perimenopausing. And you'll be surprised to know perimenopause in today's world in an urban city can even start at the age of 35. I mean, if you're getting your periods at the age of 10, then you can do the math that, you do start seeing early signs of perimenopause at the age of 35. And
Okay.
perimenopause, what is perimenopause? Why does it happen? I use this one phrase very commonly to everyone is death and menopause is non-negotiable. It is going to happen in your life. You're not going to be able to ever negotiate your life out of it, right? So
Okay.
if you're aware,
Mhm.
you will face it better. And the whole point is awareness. Your
Mhm.
hormones go through a big shift, and that is the life cycle of a female. You have puberty, you have a pregnancy, you have a lactation, and then you have a perimenopause, and then you have a menopause.
Okay.
Menopause is where there is absolute cessation of periods for over a year. You have not had a single period. But if for any reason after a year, even if you got a drop of period, you have to reset your clock. You go back to day one of counting your 1 year.
Yeah.
Whereas perimenopause are smaller symptoms, which could be anything to do with freckles on your skin, or a little bit of brain fog, or lack of sleep, or frequent injuries, or poor, more fatigue, a massive change in your body composition, inability to build muscle, inability to lose weight. You see a shift in deposition of fat in your body. You see signs of, irritability, depression. All these are
Do
symptoms of,
periods also become lesser? Like, is the flow lesser, or is it like is
so,
that also?
that is pretty much towards the last stage of perimenopause, where you will start seeing hot flushes, you will start seeing period didn't come for 3 months. The initial phases where we ignored, we start targeting perimenopause only when it becomes obvious that
Mhm,
means my periods are skipping. That's
mhm.
practically the last stage of perimenopause. By then, you've already hit, your metabolism has gone down the sink, and you have actually reached a point where now you're into menopause.
Yeah.
But the other small symptoms that I told you are actually your red flags. This
Mhm.
is where you need to realize in few years I am going to go into menopause, and this is where you start arresting. This is where you really need to start taking your workout seriously, what you put in your system seriously, getting the muscle pack, getting your training, getting your vitamin D3, getting your magnesium, getting your collagen, getting the probiotics, eating in a certain way, avoiding alcohol as much as you can. These are your main factors that you're looking for to improve health.
Okay.
And this is what will support you when you actually start skipping periods.
Mhm.
Because by the time you're skipping periods, it's almost the end. But unfortunately, that skipping period phase can also go on for a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
You skip it for 3 months, then it came 3 months regularly, then you again skipped it. So, but that's when so here is where the importance of hormone therapy happens. So
Okay.
this is where you actually need a lot of support from your gynecologist to understand how bad your symptoms are,
Mm.
or how tolerable your symptoms are. And if your symptoms are really bad, at this phase, if you start a hormone therapy, it can really support you through the entire phase of menopause.
Nutrition during menopause, is it something similar, or is it
So nutrition during menopause actually becomes much easier. It's
okay?
the phase of perimenopause which is very difficult, because it's the perimenopause where progesterones, estrogens, prolactins, FSH, everything is going off. By the
Okay.
time you've menopaused, your body has accepted all the new levels. It has accepted that my body is not going to make enough estrogen. It's accepted prolactin is going to stay at a high. It has accepted FSH is, jumped up. I'm not going to ever have a child again. So it has accepted these few things. But it's perimenopause where every month your hormones are saying that, periods need to come, and then they don't come and they skip. And
Yeah.
that's the whole chaos that's happening. And
Mhm.
that is why the nutrition at this time is very important. You
Yeah.
need to give nutrition which is comforting. You need to give foods which are happy. You need to give foods which are good fats,
Yeah.
which can support these hormones. So you need to give nutrition which is not diet. You can't be dying when you're perimenopause, and you're already dying inside, of all the symptoms that you're facing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Food has to be very supportive. But the restrictions happen when you don't exercise. So, then you expect everything from the food. And I am a big, big, big believer of exercise along with food. So for me, when someone comes to the clinic, okay, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, take 6 months to find your footing. But
Mm.
diet and workout has to go hand in hand.
I also don't think there is enough knowledge about menopause, when women reach menopause, and the years which are leading to menopause. I think women need to educate themselves a little more on perimenopause and menopause, the symptoms to look out for, especially Indian women. I know this is a big concept in the West, but I just strongly think that women, when they're in that age group of, after 35 or 34, 35, the signs that they should be looking out for, how is their body changing, how, how are their nutritional needs changing, in sort of connivance with their
Yes.
healthcare provider or their doctor.
Like I said, by the time they figure when the period starts skipping, it's already too late.
It's too late.
So
Yes.
it's too late.
Yeah.
So, there is a lot of time, energy, money invested in research for women when they are pregnant,
Yeah.
women when they are lactating,
Yes.
women when they are, pubertal. But there is not enough for perimenopause and menopause, because done and dusted, your story is over. Menopaused, finish. So then
Yeah.
what? Just take
Yeah.
some vitamins, get it over with, do some HRT if you're really bad and depressed. But yeah, that's about it. But if there is an awareness, if there are groups, there are communities, and you really feel, and you, many times women think they're alone in it, yeah. It's very
Yes,
sad.
they do. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very sad they're trying to deal with it alone. Like there has to be a massive family support. There has to be a massive talking that has to happen with everyone around you. Like imagine having a teen and perimenopausing at the same time. There is a lot of clashes in both the hormones that are happening. So you got find that balance with the rest of the house as well. That there are going to be days. Let's not loggerhead each other, but yes, it requires talking. It requires a lot of talking.
I also feel what requires talking is when, girls reach puberty and when they are about to sort of get their first period. Like in my house, it's a very open sort of topic. I have discussed it with my husband, and I have made him aware in case my daughter ever, in the near future, whenever she does. And it's not like a taboo topic. I want to
No,
talk to her about her menstruation cycle like it's a very regular thing, because it is a very
it
regular thing.
is.
It is not supposed to be hushed, or there's like this factor to it. I don't want that, because honestly I have grown up with that, and I realize that there's such a big disconnect about your own information, and there's so much misinformation then that you can get via your peers, via the internet. So it's better that you have this openness with your parents, at
Absolutely.
least. Yeah.
I totally agree with you.
Kinita, another thing, what is insulin? Like we make a big deal about these insulin spikes, and everybody these days is wearing the CGM, the
Yeah,
you know
CTMS.
was glucose monitor.
Glucose monitor.
Does everybody need it? And is it better, or do only diabetics need it, or is it better to just have that on and then just keep checking as to what foods are leading to your insulin spikes? Does that go hand in hand with your cholesterol, which is like almost like a swear word, as one doctor had called it, that it's cholesterol is almost treated like a swear word now. So just enlighten me on all of these things.
So let's take your question in two parts. Let's first understand what is insulin, and then we'll understand CGMS a little bit more. So
Okay.
first, to understand what insulin is made in our body. It is released from the pancreas. Its job is to make sure if there is any kind of excess glucose that is circulating in your system after you have consumed any kind of a meal, the insulin is released and it removes that glucose from the circulation. It is made in the body, so it's obviously good for the body, right? Anything that is made in the body cannot be bad. There has to be a reason why it is being produced in the body. But the problem over here is we kind of stress it with the way we eat our foods. We kind of give it too much work, and then it has to work extra in order to remove all the extra food that you're putting in your system. So that extra work that insulin is doing is technically, Neha, it's telling you, or it's giving you a little bit of a sign that if you keep dumping food like this into me, one day I'm going to exhaust myself and you will get diabetic. Okay.
Okay.
So technically, the right way to figure whether you can get diabetic or you have signs of diabetes is actually checking insulin and
Okay.
not your blood sugar. So
Okay.
insulin is a very, very important marker telling you whether it's working correctly with the food that you're eating or whether it's overworking.
Okay.
Now, where does insulin take all this food? Where is it taking all the food that you're dumping in your system? Where is it taking it? It has multiple pathways, and one of the important one to understand is excess of any of these food, the insulin is going to go and dump it into fat. It's going to say there's no other place anywhere else, so just dump it into fat. Say in that same breath you were exercising, you did a certain kind of a workout, then that insulin is going to take it to the muscle. So you
Okay.
understand the job of insulin is actually beautiful. If you feed it correctly, it'll
Yeah.
do its job to take it to the right activity. If you feed it incorrectly, it's going to go and dump it in your body. So a lot of the belly fat that people see is actually insulin resistance. And because the fat keeps growing, the
Mm.
insulin receptors keep getting resistant. They can't read the signals, and at some point you get diabetic.
Okay.
Now, why should one do a CGMS to check this activity? Isn't it obvious when you eat maida, it is a refined flour, your insulin
Yeah.
is going to go up.
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
going to eat chips, your insulin is going to go up. If you're going to eat a large portion of potato, it's going to go up. So it technically is not useful for anyone who is a very healthy individual who's just training, exercising, and wanting to eat right and knows his food habits. A CGMS is not going to be that much beneficial for you, because at the end of the day, you just want to see whether in 2 hours the insulin is coming back to normal or not. But for anybody who has signs of
Mhm.
prediabetes, who has insulin resistance, who has a family history of diabetes, are the kind of people who actually benefit with the CGMS. Because what does CGMS do? It will tell you which food is triggering the insulin, and after it is triggered, which food is keeping this insulin high in your
Okay.
circulation.
Okay.
So it doesn't come back to base. And that is why it is very useful for people who are pre-diabetic or are already diabetic or have a family history of diabetes.
There is a way that if your muscle mass is high, your insulin resistance, does it help with that?
Does it reduce the resistance? Yes, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. If your
Okay.
muscle mass is high, that means your muscle needs more glycogen. That means more chances of insulin taking the carbohydrate and putting it in the muscle
Yeah.
glycogen rather
Yeah.
than converting it to fat. So, of
Mhm.
course, higher the muscle mass, you are going to have a much, much sensitive and a much more responsible insulin work.
So everybody needs to be hitting weight training then. According to me, everybody
100%.
needs to be hitting weight training.
But
Uh,
the other thing also,
I mean, the
having
caveat
said
is
that,
that obviously, you have to sort of check with your doctor as to what you can do. But
no, but
it's
you can't take away the fact that cardiovascular workouts also help a lot with
okay.
correcting insulin. So
Okay.
I can't say just weight training, but when you are doing a certain kind of a workout, which is purely cardiorespiratory, cardiovascular workout, you are converting active glucose into energy with the help of insulin. So it definitely helps to bring the blood sugar down, even if you're doing cardiovascular. But when you do strength training, you
Yeah.
are getting the benefit over longer hours. When
Yeah.
you do cardio, you only get it for those few minutes that you're doing the cardio workout. When you do strength, you will get it for 36 to 72 hours.
Kinita, you've been a clinical dietitian as well, and you worked at. Have you worked at a hospital or have you worked at a series of hospitals?
I
Uh,
have worked at a couple of hospitals, yes.
And so what do you think is the state of healthcare in India? Before I get your opinion on this, I'll tell you a little bit about what I saw when my father was admitted in hospital. When these dietitians used to come and they used to write down his meal plan for the day. Or I did not feel that they have enough knowledge on what he is supposed to eat or what he's allowed. I just thought that they were just there taking orders, and they've come into the room, and they've taken an order on what to give him or what does he like to eat. What is your opinion on the the state of these clinical dietitians who are working at different hospitals? And one more thing that I want to tell you is that nearly all hospitals have junk food counters, and they have these junk food restaurants in their whatever, their reception or whatever. They have everybody has easy access to it. Now, why are these existing in a hospital? Because that is the food that you're consuming that is going to land you in the hospital in the first place. So
Mm.
I want to know, what is the state, according to you, of healthcare in India?
I'll tell you the biggest challenge today that we have in healthcare is nutrition is not taken seriously. Okay, the problem over here is, so if you ever know what is taught in when we study dietetics, when we study nutrition, we study every disease in as much detail as we can. It's pretty much a paramedical field.
Mhm.
Okay, but here lies the problem. The medical professionals don't take this paramedical field seriously. If today you see a situation, for example, a orthopedic doctor after a surgery will always tell the patient, you need to go and see a physio for rehab.
Hmm.
How often do you hear a kidney patient? How often do you hear a diabetic? How often do you hear a gynec after she's delivered a child to tell the patient that you need to go and see a nutritionist? So here is the problem that lies in the healthcare system. We need to have medical professionals who need to accept, it's not that they're unaware, they need to accept the fact what power nutrition can have to reverse a disease, to prevent a disease, to
Mhm.
make a person aware that just by changing your eating habits, you can actually prevent so many other factors. I think
Mhm.
life insurances that are done after you do a surgery should actually be given to healthcare and nutritional professionals to prevent any of these issues.
Yeah.
Honestly, because there are so many factors out there that can be supported and prevented with the pure help of nutrition, and that's the problem in hospitals. That's the biggest issue. A clinical dietitian, for the amount that they have studied and the education that they are not able to put it to practice because of the sheer inability of a doctor who doesn't think that what she's going to say can help my patient.
Mhm.
So I
Do you think
personally,
doctors also, to a large extent, are not very savvy when it comes to nutrition, probably? And do you
they are
think
in
that's
denial. Neha, let's be honest. They are in denial.
okay?
Technically, they should be having a clinical nutritionist working in their center. If he or she is consulting as a diabetologist somewhere, have a nutritionist there. If you are consulting as an endocrinologist, have a nutritionist there. These are things that can actually be worked with nutrition. You have PCOD, you have PCOS, you lactating, you are pregnant, you're insulin resistant. A gynecologist should have a full nutrition center set up because
Mhm.
these are things that actually support your client, right? But
Mhm.
the moment you reach the hospital, after that, the surgery is done or you're clinically unstable, there is very little that nutrition can do. So
Mhm.
what are you going to go there and do? You just have to work on, okay, you need to be on a tube or you need to be on soft food. Okay, we are going to start putting in food because you were nil by mouth. So we'll start with liquid. Pancreatic damage is already done. So now what is the nutrition going to do?
Mhm.
So the entire state of healthcare after the patient has reached the hospital is extremely sad because there is very poor support for nutrition outside and before. So
Okay.
if we manage to break through that, and if we have medical professionals or doctors who start looking at nutrition differently, you will
Mhm.
see a big change in clinical cases. We are the diabetic capital of the world.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
more are we looking at? And the only thing that can reverse diabetes is nutrition. What are we waiting for? I don't know. I don't know where are people headed with this. So my experience is that, of course, I went offshoot. I did something different. I got into sports nutrition. No disrespect to anyone who's currently also into clinical practice, but there has to be a breakthrough, Neha. It's very sad where we are today, where hospital clinical dietitians are concerned. They have such high regards. In my professional opinion, they know so much. They are just not allowed to apply. I'll give you a simple example. So I have a diabetic mom, and she's insulin dependent diabetic. And when I used to take her to a diabetologist, I remember I was working on her levels very closely with the food, and I knew that she if I could reduce her food, the insulin could drop, the medications could reduce. And I started doing that on my own. And for some reason, I had to travel and I was not there. And she went into a hypo. And
Mhm.
she decided to go and see her diabetologist. And he said, why are you doing all this? Just increase one more chapati in your diet. Don't do all this. No need to reduce food. Keep the insulin same.
Uh-huh.
See the approach.
Yeah.
This is the approach. The approach is not good. Reduce the insulin. Your requirement is reducing because your diet is reducing.
I
This
have
is where we
also
need.
heard of doctors who are so not informed about when they say that red meat को कम कर दो क्योंकि आपके cholesterol levels बहुत high हैं. So when the concept of red meat comes, the red meat according to them is lamb and goat. That is what
Yeah,
meat is. They don't really know what exactly is red meat and how that contributes to your cholesterol level, and what exactly do you actually eat that contributes to like a high sort of
exactly.
elevated cholesterol levels. And then they
See,
just put you on these statins,
patterns.
and then
Exactly.
like statins say your cholesterol levels will come down, but they don't tell you what all statins actually do to your body. Like they cause
Exactly.
muscle cramps. There is an adverse effect to every single pharma drug that is prescribed and that you're given, but we are not told
Yeah.
about about every single drug has a side effect, but we are not told about
And I
any of.
promise you, if you ask, they will not even answer.
Yeah, yeah.
So, here's my question. This is where exactly I come from. when you have a client who you
Hmm.
know needs nutrition advice,
Mhm.
why do you give advice which you are not up to date with?
Mhm.
Would I give a patient a renal drug just because I think I read about it 10 years back? Hasn't the study changed? Hasn't the information changed? But
Yeah.
I do this day in and day out. I am updated. Just like you are updated in your clinical practice, I am updated in my nutrition practice.
Yeah.
Take the high road, recommend the diet to someone, tell him to go see a clinical nutritionist. Like, why not? Why are you in denial? Why are medical practitioners in denial that nutritionists can actually support their clients? So you know, their concept is not the well-being of the client. Their concept is just to treat the acute situation with the most harsh allopathic medication that can be
Yeah.
given.
So it's treating the symptoms and not the cause. Am I right? They're treating the
Exactly.
symptoms and they're not treating the cause.
Yeah. And why
Oh,
have you reached this symptom?
yeah. Yeah.
Because at stage one of that, you did not take it seriously. I have such high regards for so many doctors in this city. Honestly, I'll tell you from the bottom of my heart, I have had doctors who've called me up, very, very elite doctors, saying that, Kineet, I'm going to give my client 3 months. I don't want to start him on a statin. I don't
Mm.
want to start him on a Theranorm. Fix it. See if you can. If we can't, let's work on it. Then I'll take a call. You need to have this kind of confidence in food
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they can do it. Why
Yes.
just okay TSH 8 आया चलो start Tylenol? ऐसा नहीं
Yeah.
होता यार.
Yeah.
Give the person's lifestyle is so poor. Little bit changes we can bring it down. So there are a lot of doctors, don't get me wrong, who do give nutrition that kind of importance, but there are many who are in denial as well.
Yes. Who don't.
Yeah, who
Thank you
don't?
so much, Kinita, for speaking.
Thank you, Neha.
Just enlightened me on so many levels, not just for me, but I think for people who are watching this podcast. I really hope
Absolutely.
that they continue to sort of live a happier and healthier, and the quality of life in a way is increased by everything that you've just said. Thank you so much.
Thank you for this lovely talk.
That was the Mumbai Indian sports nutritionist Kinita Patel telling us exactly what it takes to make your body into a high performance machine. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I loved chatting with her. We're going to be creating a Lifesavers community that you guys can keep referring to in the future. I also want you to tell me what you would like to listen to or any health topic that you would like me to cover, and I promise I will do that. Thanks very much.